The grand hall was filled with strange lights and loud cheers. Alien leaders from different planets had gathered to celebrate the end of the war. The smell of fire and metal still hung in the air. Warriors raised their cups and shouted indifferent. Tongues dot in the center stood Captain Jace Walker, a human soldier. He had led the final attack against the enemy base. He was tall, calm, and quiet. Many feared him. Many respected him. But no one really knew him. An alien general with blue skin and glowing eyes stepped forward. His voice echoed in the hall. To the brave human warrior, as a reward for his victory, we give him something special. 2 guards rolled in a small cage. Inside was a girl. She was curled in the corner, her body shaking. She wore almost nothing, just a torn cloth barely covering her. Her skin was pale, and her hair was long, dirty, and tangled. Chains hung from her wrists. Her eyes were wide, filled with fear. She's a pleasure animal, the alien general laughed, trained to obey. A gift use her well. The crowd roared with laughter. Some aliens howled. Others clapped and made rude jokes. But Jace didn't laugh. He stepped forward and looked into the cage. The girl slowly raised her head and met his eyes. And in that moment, something changed. Her eyes were not empty. They were not the eyes of an animal. They were the eyes of someone trapped, someone screaming inside, but unable to speak. He saw pain, shame, and a silent hope. Please don't hurt me. The guards unlocked the cage. The girl crawled out and fell at Jace's feet. She didn't look up. Say something, one alien shouted. Beg him like you were trained. Another laughed. Jace looked down at her. He slowly removed his long coat and bent down, gently. He wrapped it around her small shoulders. The room grew quiet. What is your name? Jace asked softly. The girl flinched. Her lips parted, but no words came. A name? She whispered, confused. I don't have one. Jace turned to the alien general. She's not an animal. She's a person. The general frowned. You refuse the reward? No, Jace said, standing up. I'll take her, but not as a toy. She's under my protection now. The aliens laughed again, but this time, nervously. As they walked out, the girl limped behind him, wrapped in his coat. Her head was down, and her chains dragged across the floor. No one stopped them. Back on his ship, Jace led her to the medbay. The eye voice spoke softly, scanning life signs. Multiple injuries, malnutrition, internal bruising, severe trauma. She needs rest, food, and care, Jace said. The girl sat silently on the table, not moving. He brought her a glass of water. She looked at it like it was a trick. Drink, he said gently. She took it with both hands and drank like someone who hadn't had water in days. Jace. He then handed her a clean robe. Wear this. You don't have to wear rags anymore. She slowly took it. Her hands were shaking. Why are you kind to me? She asked. Her voice was like a whisper in the dark. Jace sat across from her. Because you deserve it. I was made for use. For others, I don't understand. You're not an object, Jace said. Not anymore. That night, Jace sat in his quarters, staring at the stars through the window. The galaxy was huge, full of war and cruelty. But even in darkness, there were moments of light. Suddenly, the door slid open. The girl stepped inside quietly. She had cleaned herself. Her hair was still damp. The robe looked too big on her, but she held it tight. She walked to him and slowly knelt. I don't know how to live like this, she whispered. If I don't serve, they'll take me back, hurt me, break me. Jace stood and gently helped her up. You don't have to kneel anymore. Then, what do I do? He looked into her eyes. We start with a name. She blinked. A name? Yes, everyone deserves a name. He paused and smiled. Can I call you Lena? The girl touched her chest. Lena, she whispered. The girl waited. She sat alone on the soft bed in a quiet room, warm, clean, and safe. It was the first time in her life she had ever been alone in peace. No chains, no shouting, no cold floors. Just silence. But to her, silence was scary. In her past, silence meant danger. It meant someone was coming, someone watching, someone waiting to use her again. She pulled the human's coat tighter around her thin body, breathing fast. Her hands trembled. Her eyes scanned the door, expecting him to return any second, to take what others had taken before. She had been trained to submit without a sound, even if it hurt. Even if she wanted to scream. That's what she was taught from childhood. A pleasure animal, not a girl, not a person, but this human. He was different. Captain Jace sat alone in the ship's kitchen, drinking water and staring into nothing. He didn't understand it himself. Why did he take her? He wasn't looking for company. He wasn't looking for a reward. But the moment he saw her, something inside him stirred. A feeling he hadn't felt in a long time. Compassion. He remembered her eyes. Not lifeless, not dead, but trapped. Like someone waiting to be rescued. He couldn't leave her there, not in that cage, not in that system. And now she was on his ship. Alone. Afraid. Probably thinking he was like the others. He sighed and stood up. She needs to know, he whispered. She needs to know she's safe. When the door to her room opened, the girl jumped. She stood up quickly, dropped the coat, and lowered her head. Her robe slipped slightly off her shoulder, but she didn't fix it. She thought that's what he wanted. She waited for him to speak, but he didn't. He just stared at her. Then, slowly, he picked up his coat, walked over, and placed it gently back on her shoulders. You don't need to do that, he said softly. I thought, she stammered. You wanted. No, he said. I'm not like them. Then why did you take me? Jace took a deep breath. Because I couldn't leave you like that. But I don't know how to live without being used. He looked at her for a long moment. Then we'll learn together. The next day, she woke up to a strange smell. Food. Real food. Not the old scraps thrown at her in the cages. Not the cold pills forced down her throat. She walked carefully into the kitchen. Jace was there, cooking. He turned and smiled. Good morning. She stood frozen, staring at the table. There were eggs, bread, a warm drink, and one extra plate for her. Is this for me? She asked. Yes, sit. She sat slowly, unsure of what to do. She picked up a piece of bread and held it like it was made of gold. Eat, Jace said. She took a bite and her eyes filled with tears. She cried quietly, covering her mouth. I'm sorry, she said, her voice shaking. Don't be, Jace replied gently. After breakfast, Jace showed her on the ship. She saw the control room, the cargo bay, and even a small garden area with plants from Earth. Everywhere they walked, she expected orders, slaps, shouts, but none came. Instead, he gave her space. When she paused too long, he waited. When she asked a question, he answered. He never raised his voice. Never touched her without asking. She didn't understand it. She had never been treated like a human. That night, she sat on her bed, holding a soft blanket he had given her. It smelled clean, like safety. But inside, her thoughts were storming. What if this is a trick? What if he changes tomorrow? What if someone comes to take me back? Her heart pounded. Suddenly, the lights flickered. Her body froze. She thought of punishment, pain, darkness. She curled up in the corner, crying quietly. Jace heard her from the hallway. He rushed in. Lena, what happened? She couldn't answer. She just shook. He knelt beside her and didn't touch her. You're safe, he whispered. No one's going to hurt you again. You promise? She asked. With my life. She looked into his eyes, searching for a lie, but all she saw was truth. That night, she didn't kneel. She didn't whisper the words she had been forced to say. She simply looked at him and asked, Can I stay here as a person? And Jace smiled. Lena, from now on, you're free." The mirror did not lie. But it also didn't feel real. Lena stood in front of it, holding her breath. She wore a soft white dress, not too fancy, not too simple. It wasn't made to show off her body. It wasn't tight or torn. It was just normal, and that made her cry. Her hand touched the fabric slowly, like it was made of stars. In the mirror, she saw herself, not a pet, not a toy, not a pleasure animal, but a girl with messy hair, sad eyes, and a strange new light. In her face, she whispered to herself, "Lena." The name felt too soft for her broken voice, but it was hers. Given by him, not forced. Not sold, given, for the first time in her life. She belonged to no one. Jace watched from the hallway, unseen. He had been in many wars. He had seen planets burn. He had lost friends and bled for strangers. But this moment, watching the scared girl discover her own reflection, hit him harder than any battle. Later that day, Jace took Lena to a peaceful trade station on a floating moon. No weapons, no soldiers. Just music, color, and fresh air. She held his arm tightly as they walked. Her eyes scanned every corner. She expected chains. She expected stares. And she got them. Aliens passing by stopped and whispered, "That's one of them, a pleasure pet, out in public. He must be training her." Lena heard every word, but Jace didn't stop walking. He led her to a small market and bought her shoes. Then a scarf. Then a book with pictures of Earth animals. She held the book like it was treasure. They look so soft," she said, flipping pages, "like dreams." "That one's a panda," Jace smiled. "It's a peaceful animal." "Like me?" she asked, half joking, half hopeful. "No," he said. "You're much stronger." As they walked back toward the ship, Lena saw something that made her legs stop moving. It was a cage, not hers, but just like the one she had been in. Inside it sat a younger alien girl, chained, eyes empty. The dealer beside it shouted, "Fresh, trained. Only 200 credits." Lena couldn't breathe. She took one step forward, but a strong hand held her back. "Jace, you can't help her now," he whispered. "But we will, just not like this." Lena looked up at him. Her fists were tight. Her chest hurt. She doesn't even have a name. That night, back on the ship, Lena couldn't sleep. She sat on her bed, holding the picture book. But her mind kept going back to that girl in the cage. She stood up and walked to Jace's room. He was awake, sitting at his desk, fixing a broken drone. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Of course." Why did you name me Lena?" Jace looked at her. His face was calm, but his voice was low. "Because you deserve the name, and because it means something." "What does it mean?" He smiled gently. "In an old Earth language, Lena means light." She stared at him, silent. "Light?" she whispered. "You lived in darkness," he said, "but you survived. You still shine." Lena's eyes filled with tears. She wiped them quickly, embarrassed. "I don't feel like light," she said. "I feel broken. Even broken things can shine." Later, when she returned to her room, she looked in the mirror again. "Lena," she whispered to her reflection. "Light." And this time, she smiled, a real one, not because someone told her to, but because she finally felt like she was becoming someone. Asterisk. The scream came without warning. It shattered the silence of the ship like glass. Jace jumped out of bed, grabbed his weapon from the wall, and ran toward the sound. His heart raced. It wasn't just any scream, it was Lena's. The door to her room slid open fast. She was standing in the corner, shaking, her eyes wide in panic. The window was open, but they were in space. "Lena, what happened?" Jace asked, moving quickly to her side. She pointed at the wall, barely able to speak. Someone was watching me. I saw eyes." Jace turned. There was nothing there now. Just the window. But as he stepped closer, he noticed a small mark scratched into the metal next to the glass. A symbol, not human. Not random. It was carved with purpose. Later in the control room, Jace scanned the symbol into the ship's system. The eye responded coldly. Warning. This is the mark of the Zarn Syndicate, interstellar slave traders, known for reclaiming escaped property. Jace's eyes narrowed. So they found her. Behind him, Lena stood silently. Her hands were clenched, her body cold. I've seen that mark before, she whispered. He turned to her. When? On the collars of the older girls. The ones who tried to run, the ones who were punished. She swallowed hard. Some of them never came back. Flashbacks rushed into Lena's mind like a storm. She remembered a cold floor. Screaming, chains, needles, the smell of metal and chemicals. A girl beside her, crying quietly, saying, "We're not people. We're property." Lena had never forgotten that day. And now the same people were coming back for her. Jace paced the room. He looked angry, but not at Lena, at the ones who had done this to her. They tracked you. Maybe when we landed on the trade moon. Maybe even before. So, what now? She asked, her voice barely holding together. Will they take me again? Jace walked over to her and placed a hand gently on her shoulder. No, I won't let them. You can't fight all of them. Maybe not, he said. But I can protect you, and I can run. If I have to, you'd run. For me, I'd do more than that. That night, Jace locked down the ship's security, but Lena couldn't sleep. She kept thinking of the mark, of those watching eyes. So she picked up a pen and drew the symbol on a piece of paper. And then she started drawing other things too. Faces. She remembered rooms, shadows, cages. She didn't know why she was doing it. Maybe to forget. Maybe to remember clearly. Suddenly, she froze. One of the faces she drew, it wasn't just a memory. It was a face she saw today, in the crowd on the trade moon. He was there, she whispered. She ran to Jace's room. Jace! One of them was there, on the trade moon. I saw him. He saw me. Jace stood up instantly. Are you sure? Yes, he had the same tattoo on his neck. I remember now. Jace pulled up footage from the station. He slowed down every frame. Then he found it. A tall alien in a dark coat, yellow eyes. Tattoo on his neck, watching Lena. Following her. Smiling. We're not safe anymore, Jace said. What do we do? Lena asked. We prepare. Because next time they won't just watch. The ship shook like thunder. Red lights flashed. Alarms screamed. Jace was already in the cockpit, hands flying across the controls. Outside the window, a sleek black ship chased them, fast, silent, and deadly. Lena stood frozen behind him, clutching the wall for balance. Who are they? She shouted. They didn't send a message, Jace said, voice calm but sharp. They don't want to talk. They want to capture. The enemy ship fired again. Laser bolts, slicing through space, missing by inches. Pulled the ship into a steep dive through a cluster of asteroid debris, trying to lose them, but the black ship followed like a shadow. Earlier that day, Jace and Lena had landed on a quiet jungle moon for fuel and supplies. Birds sang in strange tones. The wind smelled like wet leaves and fruit. For a few peaceful hours, it felt like maybe they had escaped the nightmare. Lena smiled while picking glowing flowers. Jace let her breathe, but peace was a lie. Back on the ship, the eye gave a cold warning. Unmarked vessel approaching. No ID, speed increasing. Then everything turned red. Back in the cockpit, Jace activated the emergency shields. Black ship fired a magnetic pulse. The screen blinked. Systems failed. The engines dropped. The ship began to fall. Jace! Lena screamed. Hold on! They crashed into the jungle below. Trees snapping, fire bursting, metal grinding. Then silence. Jace groaned as he opened his eyes, blood on his forehead. sparks flying from broken wires. "Lena." He called out weakly. No answer. He pulled himself up and stumbled toward the back. He found her under fallen crates, alive, but hurt. Her leg was bleeding. He lifted her gently. "I told you I wouldn't let them take you," he whispered. "You didn't let them," she said, eyes fluttering. But outside, in the shadows of the jungle, dark figures moved. Boots stepped over leaves. Voices whispered in alien tongues. They were here. Jace carried Lena into the trees. He couldn't fight with her in his arms, but he wouldn't leave her. He reached a small cave hidden behind vines and placed her down carefully. "Stay here. No matter what. Don't come out until I do." "Jace," she tried to speak, but he was already gone. In the dark jungle, Jace moved like a ghost. Years of military training kicked in. He circled behind the hunters, 3 of them, dressed in black armor, armed with stun rods and capture nets. He heard one of them speak into a communicator. "Target is confirmed. The girl's in the wreck. Send backup. She's a top asset." His blood boiled. Asset? She wasn't cargo. She wasn't property. She was Lena. He struck fast, dropping the first hunter silently. Then the second, but the third turned and saw him. "You're the human who took her." "I'm the one who'll bury you," Jace growled. They fought brutal, fast. No mercy. Jace barely won. Breathing hard, Jace returned to the cave. Lena was gone. "Lena?" he called, panic in his voice. Then he heard movement behind him. He turned fast only to see Lena limping toward him, holding a stun rod. "You left this," she said, shaking but alive. "I told you to stay hidden and let them take you," she whispered. "No, I'm done hiding." Together, they stood over the bodies of the hunters. Jace looked at her, bleeding, shaking, but stronger than ever. "They won't stop," he said. "Then neither will we," Lena answered. She stared at the sky above. "If they want to hunt me, let them. I'm not their pet anymore." The fire was warm. But it wasn't safe. Lena sat beside the flames in silence, her arms wrapped around her knees. Jace had started the small fire inside the jungle cave to keep her warm. The heat touched her skin, but her mind was somewhere else, burning with fear, anger, and something new. Call on strength. The kind of strength that grows when you have nothing left to lose. She stared at her own hands. These hands had once only been used to please others. They had never held a weapon, never struck back, never protected anyone. But now, she whispered to herself, I'm not the same. Jace returned, carrying a small bag of supplies and a bruised arm. He sat beside her and handed her a protein bar. We move at sunrise, he said, before they send more. Lena nodded. Then she looked at the stun rod she had taken from the enemy. Can you teach me? She asked. Jace raised an eyebrow. Teach you what? To fight. At first he said no. He didn't want her to feel more pain. She had already survived enough. But when he looked into her eyes and saw fire, not fear, he agreed. For the next 3 days, they hid deeper in the jungle training. Jace taught her how to move quietly, how to breathe in battle, how to strike without wasting energy. Lena fell. She got hurt. She cried, but she never gave up. Every time she hit the ground, she got back up. Jace had seen trained soldiers break faster. Why are you doing this? He asked her once. Because I don't want to be saved again, she said. Next time, I want to save someone else. One morning, while practicing with the stun rod, she asked something unexpected. Do you think I'm still a pleasure animal? Jace stopped. Lena, you never were. But they called me that. Trained me. Made me think I was nothing. You're not what they called you. You're what you choose to become. She didn't say anything, but her grip on the rod tightened. That evening, they reached an abandoned satellite outpost in the jungle. Old tech, overgrown with vines, but still functional. Jace activated the signal booster to call for help. If this works, we'll get picked up in 2 days, he said, but they were not alone. Someone was already watching. Night fell. Lena stood guard while Jace slept. She heard a soft crunch of leaves, too. Soft for an animal. She grabbed the stun rod. Shadows moved. Voices in the distance. Hunters. She didn't run. She didn't scream. She stepped out of hiding. On purpose. The first hunter aimed his net cannon. Found her, he said, grinning. She's alone. I'm not alone, Lena whispered. She hit the lights on her rod. Crack. She moved like lightning, slamming the rod into the hunter's chest. He dropped. The second one rushed her, but she ducked, rolled, and struck him behind the knee. He fell, howling. The third reached for his blade only to freeze as Jace appeared, gun raised. Move again, Jace warned, and lose your leg. The fight was over. Lena stood there, shaking, heart pounding, but she didn't collapse. She didn't cry. She stood strong. Later, as the bodies were taken care of, Lena sat beside Jace under the stars. I thought I'd be afraid to fight, she said. And were you? Yes, she smiled. But I did it anyway. Jace looked at her, no longer a fragile thing in a cage, but a warrior. You're not someone I rescued anymore, he said. Then what am I? He smiled. My equal. She stood on the auction stage again. Same metal floor, same lights, same silence. But this time, there were no chains on her body, only fire in her eyes. It was a dream, but it felt real. Lena stood tall on the same auction platform where her life had once been sold. Aliens in the crowd watched her with cold, judging eyes. One shouted, "What's the price?" She didn't answer. She walked forward, slowly, carefully, and then she kicked the cage off the stage. I'm not for sale anymore, she whispered. And then she woke up. Jace's ship moved silently through space. Their signal had been received. A transport vessel was on the way to pick them up from the jungle moon. But Lena wasn't resting. She stood in the cargo bay, looking at herself in a mirror again. But this time, she wasn't trying to see the girl who used to be there. She was trying to understand the woman she had become. I fought. I survived. I gave myself a name. I didn't break. She touched the stun rod on her belt, now hers. Then she looked at the little flower she had kept from the jungle. Small, soft, but it had survived storms, crashes and war, just like her. The moment came quickly. Jace's ship picked up a signal. Slave camp located. Abandoned mining site. High activity. Confirmed prisoners. Lena stared at the screen. That's where they keep the others, she whispered. Girls. Like I used to be, in cages, forgotten. Jace looked at her carefully. If we go, we risk everything. But if we don't, she said, they'll never be free. They landed at night. The camp was massive old mining machines rusting in the corners, electric fences buzzing, and cages stacked like forgotten boxes. Inside the cages, dozens of girls, all silent, all broken, all waiting, like Lena once did. She walked into the camp wearing a hood, Jace by her side. They were quiet, fast, and smart. Guards were taken down one by one. But Lena didn't run straight to the cages. She walked to the auction platform, the same kind she once knelt on. And from there, she shouted, You called me a pleasure animal. The guards froze. You gave me no name. A few more ran toward her, but Jace dropped them before they could fire. You said I was made to serve. Lena shouted louder, her voice shaking with power. But now I command. She threw a detonator at the main fence. The electric gate exploded in sparks. The cages burst open. The girls stumbled out, confused, scared. Lena ran to them, held their hands, looked in their eyes. You are not animals, she told them. You are not things. You are free. They flew away hours later. The camp was in ruins. The freed girls slept in silence, huddled together on the floor of the ship. Lena sat beside them, watching. Jace placed a warm blanket on her shoulders. You did it, he said. No, she whispered, looking around. We did it, Later, back on a peaceful space station, officials came to take reports and offer support to the rescued. One officer, reading Lena's file, said coldly, "Former. Property of Zarn Syndicate. No official ID, no planet of origin. What do we write down for her name?" Jay started to answer, but Lena raised her hand. She stepped forward and said clearly, "My name is Lena. I chose it. I own it." The officer blinked, surprised, then slowly nodded. "Lena, it is." Jace and Lena stood at the edge of the viewing deck, watching the stars. "You were once a prize," Jace said softly. "No," Lena corrected, holding his hand. "I was always a person. I just needed someone to remind me," she smiled. "And now, I'm not his gift. I'm not anyone's reward. So what are you now?" Jace asked, looking into her eyes. "Free, loved, alive.